The things that you're up against are there to hone you and to shape you. And if you've said into the universe, I want to be this kind of leader, the opportunity presented to you in the moment of this crisis, in the moment of this difficult decision, is giving you an opportunity to hone that skill, to learn or gain wisdom or lean into something you otherwise weren't willing or ready to step into, but now you are. Can you recognize that you've been prepared for this decision you have to make? You're the right person for the job. Welcome to Evolve Leadership, the arena where high-achieving leaders are challenged to redefine their limits. My name is Angus Nelson. I grew up in the United States and I now live in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm an executive coach and I've spent my career advising and training leaders from startups to Fortune 500 companies. And here's what I've learned. An old, ineffective leadership framework will always keep you on a hamster wheel, consumed with work-life balance, burnout, and stress. Here on the show, each week we'll help you rethink the path to achievement. We'll help you discover new principles, new philosophies to the modern leader. Look, the world is relentlessly changing, demanding a new era of leaders. It's time to redefine your limits. So enter the arena, my friend. It's time to evolve.
Welcome to the Evolve Leadership Show. My name is Timm McLagan. I'm the senior coach here at Evolve Leadership. And Angus, today we are going to be talking about how to make high-stakes decisions under pressure.
Yeah, I've spoken with 3 executives just in the last 2 weeks who are all under the difficult decisions of layoffs. Layoffs at their company they have to make. And these decisions that they're making, the weight that they're carrying, is as a result of whatever decisions they make are going to affect lives and futures, resources, revenue, investors' expectations, all of it. And for you at home, if you're a leader, if you're in your car, if you're washing dishes, if you're mowing the lawn, we've all been in that place where there's a situation that requires us to make a decision under high pressure, under high stakes, and those decisions can feel overwhelming. You don't want to make the wrong decisions that could jeopardize the future of the company. You also are feeling the stress of balancing the stakeholders' expectations versus what's actually realistically possible.
Yeah.
And then you've got the anxiety of leading a team that through these uncertain times, through this ambiguity, through the culture impacts of it, that's going to weigh on you immensely.
Yeah.
And the needs of maintaining your own personal well-being. As one of my former friends said, I just want to get out of this with my soul intact. That's what he felt when he's going through making these difficult decisions and maintaining work-life balance and handling these intense demands as the leader to make a decision.
Yeah. Angus, there is a unique pressure that is on leadership, especially through those key decisions, those key crossroads, those key moments within a company's life. And you're not alone. A lot of times we can feel really isolated in leadership, but there are ways to be able to go into that to have the most successful outcomes of those high stakes decisions. And Angus, you gave us 5 strategies to navigate high stakes decisions. And I kind of want to walk through one by one because I think these are powerful tools to use when we're facing that decision, just to be able to give us the best chance of seeing the best outcome. And what did you say? Keep your soul intact? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. And so the first one is the power of the pause. Explain that for us.
Rushing to do anything will typically bring regret. And so taking a beat, taking a moment, taking a breath, anything like that to just kind of step to the 30,000, 40,000 feet to say objectively, can I see the whole playing field? Can I see all the details in play? You can't, in that moment, that rush of emotion, fight and flight, that emotion of pressure will typically cause you to go to a place of scarcity or fear or to fight. And it's rarely going to be the right decision. And there was one of our clients, when he came to us, he came out of the military, he founded this company, and this company is in a state where they are having a bigger burn rate than they are a revenue. So money is dwindling. They can see it coming. The train is down the tracks and it is not stopping. And he found himself consistently angry, both at home and in the office. He found himself in a place where he's like biting at people, and snapping at people. And this pressure is mounting and building in him. And so as people are questioning him, he and I were talking, and I said, well, what would solve the problem? He's like, I don't know, just make more money. And I said, then go sell more deals. And he stopped in that second and said, well, of course. And I said, but you're so bound in all of the emotion. You're so bound in everyone's expectations. You're so bound in your own expectations that you can't do the very thing that can set you free. So number one, let's give you that perspective. And then number two is, every time you're in conversations until this problem is solved, I'm going to give you some practice here. And so we talked about a thing called box breathing, where when you take a breath, you count to 4, you hold it, count to 4, you breathe out, counting to 4, you hold it, count to 4. And that's the box. And in that moment, just do a couple of boxes. Like in that instant, you can bring your energy down, bring your fight flight mechanisms down, and give yourself some emotional regulation, right? The second piece, or related to that, could just be taking a quick walk. Like, just go around the block. Just walk down to the park. Maybe if you have a dog, take the dog for a walk. Like, you've got to clear your head, get your toes in the grass, get some sunshine, see the world for a brighter place than the immediacy of what you're contending with. And the other piece I would say too is giving yourself space and margin is the most responsible thing you can do. That despite all the expectations, there are certain things in life that must be done. I've got to have dinner with the family, or I've got to take my wife out on a date. I've got to kiss the kids goodnight. What if you just did some of those natural, normal human things just so that you can give yourself some space for your brain to click into solution mode? Yeah. To make a decision outside of the impending, oncoming train, and instead making a decision of, what's the right thing to do right now?
Yeah. Angus, we talked on a previous show that the fight or flight mechanisms in our body where the adrenaline is rushing is really useful when we're running from the saber-toothed tiger, not when we're trying to make a crucial business decision, because we get in what they call the reptilian brain, where it's just fight or flight. But when we can relax, and this is where the power of the pause comes in, where we can relax, get some perspective, pause. And in some ways it's, you don't want to go into paralysis analysis, right? Some people, they wait too long, but deciding when to decide. I heard the story of when President Obama and his cabinet were deciding when to, they identified a place that looked like where Osama bin Laden lived. And President Obama went around the whole cabinet asking people what they thought. And then he goes, okay, I'll make a decision in the morning. And then he went to, I think it was it was one of those comedy acts where they invite all the news press. I forget what you call that, and they're cracking jokes or whatever. And then he goes to sleep. Then he wakes up and makes the decision, go in there. And there's something powerful of that pause where you can just take a moment. And even if you have a decision in mind, giving it space, giving it a little breath so that you can even feel better and double down on it, or it gives you an opportunity to wait, maybe I need to reconsider this or get more input. And so I love that first one, power of the pause.
Well, I want to just wrap that back to this particular executive I was talking about, one of our clients, when he made this adjustment, it impacted his entire life. Both how he led, he created more peace, more unity within his team. And I'm talking within the span of like 6 weeks.
Wow.
And he started having different conversations with his wife. And furthermore, because he like took the pressure off, lowered those serotonin and stress chemicals in his brain, he started thinking of past conversations and leads he hadn't followed up on. Some of the things that had felt like they'd gone cold. And he's like, wait a second, and went out and made the sales himself and brought revenue into the company and turned it around.
Yeah.
Just by the power of the pause, not reacting to the immediate, but rather giving yourself that space to actually see the appropriate.
Yeah. I love that. So strategy number 1 is power of the pause. The second strategy you say is anchor to your values. Talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. You've got a bunch of options you got to make in this whole thing. And sometimes you get in these situations where you have to have a compass. Like, what am I going to do in this situation? This is a difficult thing. Like, there's a book I read years ago called Crucial Conversations, talking about when the stakes are high in a conversation, you're talking with somebody it's a really high intense thing. And one of the guys we worked with, years ago when I first started, he was working with a client and he was brought in by the board of this organization. And so now he's talking to the head of the company, and that guy, the head of the company, was treating this member of ours as if he was an employee of the company. Now he's brought in as a consultant. He's being treated like an employee, and not just an employee, but the kind of employee that this guy leads. And he treated this guy the same way that he treated all of his other employees. He was verbally abusive, condescending, sarcastic. And so I'm talking with my client and I'm like, so what do you think you should do? He's like, I don't know. These guys, they're paying me $6,000 a month. I mean, that's a big nut, in my revenue. And I don't know where I'm going. I was like, so let me ask this. Do you respect you? He's like, damn straight, I respect me. And I said, well, if you respected yourself, would you let somebody treat you like that? And it was like the epiphany, that light bulb moment where he's like, no. It's like, I've got boundaries. And so he went and confronted this guy, and he did it respectfully. He did it kindly. And this guy lashed back out at him and says, like, who are you to tell me, blah, 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 blah. And he cut him free. Our client said, you got to go. Now, here's the interesting piece. 2 weeks later, that client got 2 more clients that more than replaced the revenue that he was getting from that initial abuse.
I love that.
Simply because he found his own personal values in and amongst the crucial conversation.
Yeah. And Angus, I can think for a lot of our listeners, especially in industries like tech or others, where there's so much rapid change, movement, new tools, AI, right? And at some point, there's always a tendency to jump on the new thing. And obviously AI is a beautiful thing in many ways. But what's important is that each new tool that comes out is to really say, does this really connect with my values, or is it just a new tool? Each sales technique, to some sales techniques might really align with your values and some might not. And so I think in some ways it's really being able to, it's setting us in stone beforehand. This is what we're about. And then as new opportunities come in, you get to decide, does this fit us? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And, some companies, even in some of their culture will create some value systems within, people over ideas is one of the principles for one of the companies that we work with. So that if somebody is wanting to move in a certain direction, and then one person decides, well, I think we should go in this different direction. Like, who are all the other people that are going to be impacted by you making this, rash change? And their decision is no, people over ideas. Just because you have an idea doesn't mean we suddenly implement it. It's like we talk to the people. Are you cool with this idea? Can you make these changes? Can you shift in this area? Can you shift in this area? Can you pick up the slack in that area? Oh, you can't? Yeah, we're not going to do this idea. And that becomes a value set within the company. So it's not just talking about values for you as an individual, but what are the values of the company? And are you establishing those and holding the line of these values within the company? You know, there's another one, and we're going to talk about this that kind of fits in this other thing, that same client company that we were just talking about said progress over perfection. Like, let's get it out there. Let's get it produced. Let's get it shipped. Not just waiting for it to be perfect. It might not ever be perfect. There's so many areas in our world of whether it be some kind of editorial thing, a distribution thing, a production thing, where sometimes you just need to get it out to the market to see if the market likes it. Sometimes you need to just get it done to get it to the next step in the process to see it can get approved, see if it can get tested, see if it can pass with flying colors. Yeah. Values.
And I love it because when we're having that crucial decision, I think in many different ways, it can be that North Star for us, guiding us forward. The next one I want to talk about, Angus, is the third strategy is data and instincts, the dynamic duo. I think I know where you're going here.
Duo.
Bam, pow, sock, data, instincts.
Zap. So, you know, here's this thing where, and you said this earlier about, we don't want paralysis of analysis, but you do need some data, right? We want to take a look at what are going to help us make these decisions. What are some of the perspectives? What are the budget? What are some of the line items? What are some of the dates of our shipping or production or, whatever? Like, that's important, right? And you can take all that data and you can put it into the equation, but then there's this other part, and that's your gut. What's your gut feeling about this? Because most of us, especially if you're a high performer, if you've risen to leadership, there's an element of intuition. That's kind of like the X factor. That's kind of like the one piece that a lot of people lack, is your ability to trust yourself, trust your instincts, right? So you've got to balance the data with that intuition, those instincts. And if you can do that, you can win. If you do that, you can move things forward. And this is that part where, again, it's like, is it going to be perfect? I don't know. I just have to make a decision. But the decision I'm going to make is because I trust myself, my expertise, my experience, my knowledge of what's going around. And this is the choice we're going to make. And we're going to live with it. And I'm going to be okay with that. And if something goes awry or something goes, sideways, then we'll figure it out.
Let me just pause for a second to say this. There is one trait that you will find in every successful leader, no matter their industry, no matter their role. And that trait is action. And we want to inspire ambitious leaders like you to bet on yourself and take action on those audacious goals that you see in your heart. That's why we created our 90-day accelerator. It's a results-driven, battle-tested framework designed specifically for high-performing leaders like you to get unstuck and propel you towards your goals. And in just 90 days, you won't even recognize the person you used to be. To be a part of this elite community, go to evolveleadership.org. Now, back to the show. Some of the best coaches in football are ones that balance analytics with an intuition and a gut decision, right? So there are some coaches just ignore the analytics, and usually they suffer for it because there's data that's ready to be had, that's ready to inform them on how to perform better. But then sometimes they say it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmy and the Joes, right? There's this intuition of knowing when the player has a hot hand, when they're ready, for something, and you can let go of analytics. And I think it's having those two balanced. When you're too leaning on one or the other, you're not going to be as successful as when you have the data and you also are really leaning into your intuition, and you use those both as a guiding factor when coming up against a critical decision.
100%. And one of our founders that we work with had this situation where one of the developers working on his new app gave him pause. It gave him, it wasn't, the pause we're talking about. It gave him like an opportunity to like, do I trust this guy? Like he said something or promised something and didn't deliver. And he's like, I don't know if I can trust this guy. And so we're talking about it. And he's like, so what do you think about that? And I said, well, let me ask you this. Could the fact that you're asking whether you should trust this guy isn't already an indicator that you shouldn't?
His intuition.
Your intuition is saying something. And perhaps this isn't a matter of a question, but rather following the intuition.
Yeah, really, really cool. We have the power of the pause. We have anchor to your values. We have data and instincts. And I'm getting balloons because I'm holding up 3 fingers on. For those of you on YouTube, you're getting balloons because I'm holding up 3 fingers. But the fourth one here is embrace diverse insights. And I love this because especially in leadership, we can get really, we can get isolated from some of the really stuff that's happening within our company. We don't necessarily hear from all, or you can get the yes man syndrome where you put around people around you who just say yes, 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 but they won't actually vocalize the real thing they're thinking of. And so to be able to even have people in the company who hold a different viewpoint than you, I think it's a really powerful tactic.
I've worked with people, and I know you've worked with people.
Oh, yes, I have.
That all fit this bill.
Yeah.
Where there is this element where the leader is making ridiculous decisions because the people below them, the people that report to them, will not give them the God honest truth. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think even some of the people that work with us because we speak truth, because we tell it like it is, because we cut through all the BS. And isn't that what so many of these leaders need? So in the same moment, like you want to get something outside. Didn't you work with somebody that that like checked with different people at different levels, different areas of the business, maybe not even related or something like that? I can't remember the story.
Yeah, he was a virtual mentor, but I really respect him. So he's running this massive, massive company. And what he would do was get every single person from each different like stage or level of impact and bring them in a room. When he was making a keynote to the whole company, he would bring everyone in there to prep and say, hey, am I hitting the right chord? I mean, even from somebody working on the lowest levels of the company, he would bring them in because he would say, now listen, your job is to tell me honestly, how this is hitting, because he wanted the message to resonate. He wanted it to hit. He didn't just talk to the board or his own advisors or the leaders. And I really respect that because he said the most helpful insight is the people who are the most distant from the leadership boardroom. He said they're the most helpful because I can tell whether it's hitting or not, and they can tell me whether it's hitting or not. And it really helped them lead the company well.
And as a leader, we have to recognize that we take on our own bias. Many times we see myoptically, we just see some of the things that we always see, and we don't necessarily, and depending on what the circumstances are of the decision you're making, you may need some outside eyeballs, some outside opinions, some outside expertise that can speak truth into what decision you should make. So be open, be humble to recognize your own blind spots so that you can make a decision in light of what's best from perspective of others, not just yourself.
And Angus, even if it's something that we know we might disagree with, I think having a voice that will tell their truth honestly. And even if you disagree with what they come up, at least you heard them out. At least you heard the pros and cons. I think it's when we go blindly with our ears covered, into the decision. I think we miss out on the opportunity that we all have blind spots. We all have things we don't see. And to have other people's perspectives is so valuable. I think that's why even among your biggest advisors is to have, this is, all of our members say that one of the reasons they love you as a coach is that you'll just tell them straight the stuff they don't want to hear, that no one else in their company will say because they're worried about their status. And you'll just be straight up with them. And like, this is why you hired me, is so I can tell you plainly. And then now you get to decide how to take that. And especially in these crucial leadership decisions, we need to hear everything. We need to hear all the points of view so we can make an informed decision.
And it hurts so good, baby. Truth hurts so good. The fifth thing, that we should probably jump into is the ability and agility to pivot.
Pivot, baby. Yeah.
Because when you have a choice and decision, like we stated, where you've taken in the data, now you're going to trust your instincts, trust your gut. You're going to go to that place where you've brought other people in. Now you can make this decision. It's like, then you have to live with that decision, right? And it's being prepared that as we make whatever decision this might be, that we are ready to make the changes, make the adjustments, make the shifts we need to do mentally or physically even within the company. And not every decision, like I said, will be accurate, will be spot on. And so you may have to iterate. I mean, if you're in tech, you might have to get a scrum master in there and we're going to do some agile development on our own company. Like we're going to take these sprints to say, we're going to correct here, then we're going to correct here, and then we're going to correct here. And we're going to dramatically improve the company incrementally. And being open and flexible and embracing that kind of resilience is something that you have to pass on to the rest of the team so they can learn to adapt. They can learn to be pliable and adjust to the necessary means of what is required of our next steps. So again, as we stated before, progress, not perfection. So making the decision doesn't have to be the perfect decision. It just needs to be the next decision.
And Angus, sometimes, I know we're talking about high stakes decisions, and sometimes even in these big decisions, we need to lower the stakes, because if we tell these stories in our head where like, oh, the company's riding on this next decision. Well, most of the time it's not. Most of the time, even if you make an incorrect decision or you make something, you can always pivot. You can always shift. It can always move you forward into the next thing. So many times it's actually lowering the stakes. It's actually just saying, this is I've got all the information. I've listened to I've taken my pause. I've aligned it to my values. I've been able to look at the data. I look at my intuition. I'm hearing from, a bunch of different places. And now I'm just going to make the next best decision. And it's just the next one. It's not the big one that's going to change everything. It's just the next one. And when we can lower it, then it takes fear, because fear can be a terrible advisor. Some of the worst decisions I've ever made as a leader were based out of fear of failure, fear of whatever. But when we can actually just say, you know what, I'm human. And as a leader, the buck stops with someone. And if it stops with me, damn it, I'm just going to make this decision and we can always pivot. Now, Angus, I know you can't be waffling, right? So you can't pivot, we're not pivoting the next day and then the next day and then the next day. You're holding your course. And when you realize, okay, it's time to pivot, we can pivot. But what it does is it lowers the stakes so that we can actually make a good decision instead of raising it and keeping us in a state of fear, because fear can be a terrible advisor.
Yeah, 100%. And, it makes me think of, well, you know who I'm going to talk about. Yeah. One of the guys that he ran this group. It was a membership program. As he had a day job, but on the side, he wanted to take his skills and talents and pass them on to the world in a way that he could replace his day job and just do this thing he knew that he was so good at. And unfortunately, he could never get that little side hustle, that business, to get over $1,500 a month. as hard as he tried, and he did it for years, and he was just kicking himself. Like, what is my deal? I'll do it this way, and I'll do it this way.
Yeah.
And one of his high stake, high pressure type of situations was not necessarily an outside source. It was an inside source where within our mastermind, we challenged him. Like, what's the next step?
Mm-hmm.
How do you go from where you are to where you want to be? And collectively, we read this book, 10X is easier than 2X. Highly recommend this book. You should check it out.
So good.
And he was like, well, how do I do that? And through the little hot seat we had for him, we pointed some things out and some of the skills and just genius that he possessed, how it could be applied in other areas. And he was so afraid to let go of the thing he'd always done.
Yeah.
And yet also afraid to step into this thing that seemed new.
Mm.
And that pressure to him caused him to like take a different pause, delay. He was like, I don't know what to do. I want to do. And it built up and built up. And he built up the stakes in his own head, built a story that this is going to be the end all be all. If I screw this up, I have to make whatever I do on this next decision is going to have to be the right one. And we're all like, slow down, slow your roll.
Yeah.
Just make a decision. Just make the next decision. And he made a shift, recognizing that genius that he possessed, took it to an industry that desperately needed what he had.
Mm-hmm.
And he more than 10x'd his revenue.
Yeah.
To the degree that he closed down the membership forever.
Closed down his day job.
And then he closed down his day job.
Yeah.
So when we look at some of these scenarios and situations we get ourselves in, I want to throw this in. The challenges that you are facing, in some ways you asked for. The things that you're up against are there to hone you and to shape you. And if you've said into the universe, I want to be this kind of leader, the opportunity presented to you in the moment of this crisis, in the moment of this difficult decision, in the moment of this critical conversation is giving you an opportunity to hone that skill, to learn or gain wisdom or lean into something you otherwise weren't willing or ready to step into, but now you are. And I heard this said, our capacity is expanded at our extremities. I'm going to say that again. Our capacity is expanded at our extremities. So when you're at that moment and you can feel the stretch, you can feel that pressure, that's the invitation that's taking you higher. It's taking you into a new realm, a new echelon of leadership. And so when you feel this, my challenge to you is, can you recognize that you've been prepared for this decision you have to make? You're exactly where you need to be. You're the right person for the job.
Yeah. You signed up for this and you're ready. It's almost, we talk about this, Angus, the universe has promoted you. So when we hit this decision, we're not trying to avoid the pressure. No, we're going to be the one who stands up under it. We're going to be the one who leads well within it. And friend, I don't know what pressure decision you're making. I don't know what role that you're in where you need to make a tough decision. But if we can come in with these strategies, we no longer have to fear it. It's just par for the course. And what feels like overwhelming right now, as we start implementing these, can feel less and less overwhelming and more, this is just normal waking up as a leader, making decisions. Number one, using the power of the pause. Number two, anchoring your values. Number three, using data and instincts combined together. Embrace diverse insights and the agility to pivot.
So remember this. Leadership isn't about avoiding pressure. It's about thriving within it. Diamonds are only made the pressure. And that's you. You're the diamond. You have been crafted with a sense of value that others saw in you to put this in place. Will you have that same sense of value for yourself? To know that you are prepared to make this decision. And whatever tomorrow brings, you'll make that decision. And then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. Because you're a decider. That's what leaders do. So congratulations, you signed up for this, and you're just the person for the job. Thank you for taking the mantle and being the leader you were born to be. As we wrap up another episode of Evolve Leadership, thank you so much for taking time to invest in you. If there's to be any sustainable growth in your company or even in your relationships, you must grow first. And it's what I love to do for leaders, to help them grow, to challenge their thinking, sharpen self-awareness, to instill an unshakable confidence, and ultimately upgrade their sense of self. And we do this through our proprietary method called Agile EQ Plus, where we're leveraging agile leadership and emotional intelligence. We provide our signature training for individuals, and for businesses, we've designed a unique curriculum for company-wide learning and development. If you'd like to learn more about our training or to schedule a call, you can simply go to evolveleadership.org. And until next time, stay driven, keep climbing, and never stop evolving.